Welcome to Bed Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, T. Hope you guys are all having a great weekend. For anyone new here, welcome. Thanks for checking out my channel. Let me just ask that if after listening to or watching this video, you find you enjoyed it, do me a favor, smash that like button and subscribe to my channel. Now let's get started. Defendant 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger, who is accused of taking the lives of Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Maddie Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves, left a trail of digital breadcrumbs and video sightings of his car that led investigators right to his front door, thanks to footage from surveillance videos and cellular data from cell towers that his cell phone pinged off on the night of Saturday, November 12, 2022, and into the early morning hours of Sunday, November 13th. It's pretty clear where the graduate student was traveling that Saturday and Sunday in his white 2015 Hyundai Elantra. Of course, Kohberger's defense attorney may try to argue that someone else could have been in possession of both his white Elantra and his cell phone. But for this video, I'm going to assume that it was none other than Bryan Kohberger who was driving his Elantra and who had his cell phone in that car with him. And let me say that Bryan Kohberger is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. However, he is also the one and only person that law enforcement has charged with committing this crime at this time. Today, I want to walk you through Bryan Kohberger's timeline from his first days in Pullman, Washington, when he initially moved there from Pennsylvania to study criminology and criminal justice for his PhD at Washington State University, up to the immediate days after the crime in Moscow, Idaho. I'm going to refer to Kohberger as BK for now, if he is the person responsible for doing in the four precious human beings, then I don't want to give him any added fame or notoriety. BK moved to his apartment at 1630 Northeast Valley Road on the campus of Washington State University back in early August. That apartment is just 8 miles from where the four students, Kaylee Gonsalves, Maddie Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle, lived in Moscow, Idaho. A drive from BK's apartment to the girls' off-campus house on King Road in Moscow should take about 15 minutes. We know that by Sunday, August 21st, that summer, BK's phone was picked up by a cell tower that provides coverage to the girls' off-campus house and neighborhood in Moscow. So BK may have been checking out the girls' neighborhood and house already by late August. His phone pinged near King Road between 10:34 p.m. and 11:35 p.m. that night, Sunday, August 21st. You have to wonder what a graduate student who's also a teaching assistant is doing out at this hour 8 miles from his apartment on a one-way street in Moscow, Idaho. That's not a neighborhood one simply stumbles upon while checking out the town. You basically have to know someone who lives there to follow that one street in to that spot on King Road. Was this the first time BK went to the girls' neighborhood? Had he perhaps met them at a bar in Moscow and exchanged phone numbers and names? Or did he find one or more of these beautiful young women on Instagram where they all had accounts and often posted images of themselves? We don't yet know how BK came to be aware of the girls living at 1122 King Road. On that August night, did he park his white 2015 Elantra somewhere, get out, and walk over to the tree line at the rear of the girls' rental home property? Did he spend that hour watching them through their back kitchen window and Kaylee's third-floor bedroom window? There was a photo posted on Reddit that appears to have been taken from outside the house showing what appears to be Kaylee in a black bra. Could that image have been taken by BK as he window peeped? This is all pure speculation, but it is based on where BK's phone and car show him being. BK's phone would be picked up by the same cell tower near the girl's home on King Road 11 more times in the weeks and months leading up to November 13th, 2022, the day of the crime. All of those visits to the girl's neighborhood were at night, except for one. Again, what was BK, who lived in Pullman, Washington, doing in that neighborhood, possibly on that one-way street at night? Many criminal profilers who talked about the characteristics and behaviors of the person they imagined committed this crime, in which a sharp-edged object was used, to do in 4 young people, the majority of whom were females, said the perpetrator was likely a male between the ages of 20 and 30, who was likely watching them for some time, probably from that tree line at the rear of the property. Perhaps BK was doing surveillance on these 12 days in which his phone pinged in the girl's neighborhood. Moving on to the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, the day of the crime. BK's phone is picked up by a cell tower near his apartment in Pullman, Washington at 2:42 a.m. in the morning. At 2:44 a.m., a white sedan that looks like BK's white Elantra is captured on WSU surveillance cameras traveling north on Southeast Nevada Street at Northeast Stadium Way. At 2:53 a.m., a white sedan that looks like BK's white Elantra is observed traveling southeast on Nevada Street in Pullman toward SR 270, which is the highway that connects Pullman, Washington with Moscow, Idaho. While this white sedan is traveling toward Moscow, Idaho, Kaylee and Maddie were back home at 1122 King Road after spending time at the Corner Club bar in downtown Moscow. Xana Kernodle and her boyfriend Ethan Chapin had been home for about 1 hour at this point, and 2:42 a.m. would have been right in the middle of the period when Kaylee and Maddie's cell phones were repeat dialing Kaylee's ex-boyfriend, Jack DeCurr. While Kaylee is trying to get Jack DeCurr to pick up his phone, BK's phone is traveling toward Moscow. Just 5 minutes later, at 2:47 a.m., BK's cell phone pings again, indicating that it had begun to travel south through Pullman, Washington, toward Moscow. Moments later, BK's cell phone stops pinging, which indicates that it was either put on airplane mode, turned off, or it had dropped off the network. This is presumably when BK, if he is found to be the offender, turned off his cell phone. He would have arrived in Moscow just about 15 minutes later, give or take, so that would mean he arrived in Moscow by, say, 3:05 a.m. What did he do between 3:05 a.m. and 3:26 a.m.? That is unknown. But at 3:26 a.m., a white sedan said to be consistent with Bryan Kohberger's white Elantra was captured on a surveillance camera traveling westbound in the 700 block of Indian Hills Drive in Moscow. At 3:28 a.m., BK's Elantra is spotted by a camera westbound on Steiner Avenue at Idaho State Highway 95 in Moscow. The white sedan, while captured on the video, does not have a front license plate. Starting at 3:29 a.m., that white sedan is captured on video, making an initial 3 passes by the 1122 King Road residents. The Elantra is seen entering the area near the King Road house a 4th time at approximately 4:04 a.m. This is when the white Elantra was captured on video driving eastbound on King Road, stopping and turning around in front of 500 Queen Road at the 52 number apartment, and then driving back westbound on King Road. The driver of the Elantra made an unsuccessful attempt to park and or turn around in the road at that point. Then it continued to the intersection of Queen Road and King Road, where it was captured making a 3-point turn and then driving eastbound again down Queen Road. At some point, the driver parks the Elantra. I believe the driver of the Elantra may have been waiting for a DoorDash delivery person who showed up at 1122 King Road at 4 a.m. with a delivery for Xana to drive away before he approached the house. So it would appear that BK was out in Moscow near King Road starting around 3:29 a.m. He doesn't go inside until after 4:04 a.m. At 4 a.m., that DoorDash delivery guy arrived at the front of the King Road residence with his delivery for Xana. 4 a.m. is also when Dylan M. said she was awakened by what she stated sounded like Kaylee playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms. Xana likely receives her food from the DoorDash driver at the home's front door, which is on the ground level in the front. Xana is clearly awake at this hour. This may explain why Xana will later be said by the coroner to have defense wounds, indicating she fought the intruder. She was the only victim, I believe, who was fully awake when the intruder appeared. Thus, she was the only one who had a chance to fight him. My understanding is that the offender entered the girl's home from the rear, either through the sliding glass doors that lead into the kitchen or through the kitchen window, which had a concrete block under it when Chris McDonough of the interview room visited the house and property on Thanksgiving. It's possible the offender went through the window. We know that no doors or windows were broken to get him inside the house. I believe the offender entered the home at around 4:05 or 4:06 a.m. The intruder will later be described by eyewitness Dylan M. as being 5 feet 10 inches tall or taller and wearing all black clothing and a mask that concealed all but his eyes. Within the next 15 or so minutes, the lives of 4 human beings will be taken, and the lives of their families and friends will be forever changed. The crime, once it started, happened very quickly. I'm going to divide the 15 minutes this masked man spent inside the girl's house by half and say he devoted 7.5 minutes to the first bedroom he entered, and the second 7.5 minutes to the second bedroom that he gained access to. The masked offender spent some of the first 7.5 minutes inside 1122 King Road, walking up the stairs to the 3rd floor. How Xana failed to see him at this point is unclear. It's possible she was back in her bedroom after retrieving her DoorDash order from the downstairs front door. It is my belief that Kaylee and Maddie were the intruder's first victims, despite the timeline making it sound like he and Xana would have crossed paths right out of the gate. I think it was just a matter of mere minutes or seconds that kept Xana from seeing the intruder at this time. The intruder silently padded up the stairs to the 3rd floor in his Vans tennis shoes. The door to Kaylee's bedroom was open. The intruder glances in and sees it's vacant. He turns to the other bedroom door and quietly opens it. There he finds Murphy the dog waiting on the other side. Thankfully for the intruder, Murphy is not an aggressive pooch, and he's not quick to bark. This allows the intruder to coax the dog into Kaylee's bedroom and close the door. But the noise and movement of the intruder taking Murphy away has awakened Kaylee in Maddie's dark bedroom. Suddenly seeing the dark silhouette in the doorway, Kaylee jolts awake and she shouts, "There's someone here." Her words awaken the still somewhat inebriated Maddie. Kaylee's words also travel down to Dylan M., who is in her bedroom on the second floor. Dylan even peeks out of her bedroom door at this point, but sees nothing. Kaylee likely only had enough time to say those words before the intruder reacted. He unsnaps the brown leather sheath, holding a large, sharp-edged object, and he tries to whip it out gracefully, but he's not smooth. Things become chaotic, and in trying to get that sharp-edged object out of the sheath somehow comes off the intruder's belt and falls, unbeknownst to him, onto the bed to the right of Maddie. He has to move fast now because both people are awake. He wastes no time and launches straight into a chaotic, frenzied blitz attack. He first vents his anger on Kaylee, likely his target, and then turns to Maddie. After the intruder's mad jab blitzkrieg, the bedroom falls into a sudden, dead calm. No noise, no movement. The offender retreats, closes the door behind him with a gloved hand, and pads down the stairs to the second floor. By this time, it's around 4:14 a.m. We know Xana's cell phone showed that she was still using the TikTok app at 4:12 a.m., so at 4:14, she's still awake, either spotting light streaming out from Xana's bedroom door or seeing Xana standing in the doorway to her bedroom because she too perhaps heard Kaylee say, "There's someone here." The masked intruder now has to confront not one, but two people. He's shocked to find another male in the house. That would be Ethan Chapin. My rational mind says that Xana's in the doorway, but then I don't know how the intruder could have made it over to Ethan. So another part of me says Ethan was injured first, and then Xana. What we do know is that at approximately 4:17 a.m., a security camera less than 50 feet away from the west wall of Xana's bedroom on the exterior of the neighbor's house at 1112 King Road picked up distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper followed by a loud thud. Dylan M. also says that she heard crying coming from what she thought was Xana's bedroom, which prompted her to open her bedroom door on the second floor, just feet away from Xana's bedroom, once again. Dylan then heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." I believe that was the intruder speaking to Xana, trying to manipulate her into not fighting him. It sounds like only Xana had the opportunity to look this man in his eyes. Ethan, I'm assuming, would have been quickly silenced by the intruder, or else Dylan would have heard Ethan's voice as well. A dog can also be heard barking numerous times starting at 4:17 a.m. Was that Murphy reacting to the crying and the loud thud? And was that loud thud Xana falling to the floor? I ask this because when the police finally arrived at the house around noon on Sunday, they found Xana on the floor of her bedroom. Neighbor Inan Harsh, who lives in the brick and yellow apartment complex next door, also heard what he thought might have been a scream around 4 a.m. He was dozing off, though, and likely could not pinpoint exactly when he heard that noise. Dylan says that she opened her bedroom door a third time after hearing the crying, and that was when she saw a figure she did not recognize, clad in black clothing and wearing a mask over his mouth and nose, walking toward her. She described him as not very muscular, but athletically built, with bushy eyebrows. She freezes, and the man miraculously walks past her. But as he walks past her, he leaves what the police describe as a latent shoe print on the floor just outside Dylan's door. A blood test is later run on the print, so I'm assuming that shoe print was partially made with the red stuff that runs through our veins. Around, say, 4:18 a.m., the masked intruder walks toward the back sliding glass door. Once he's past her, Dylan closes her door and locks it. 4 students are now motionless and forever silent in that home. One surviving roommate presumably sleeps through the entire attack on the home's lowest level. The other surviving roommate, Dylan M., is aware that a masked man was inside the house, but perhaps was unaware of what he did and why Xana was crying. She does not immediately dial 911. Everything happened in mere minutes. At 4:20 a.m., the white Elantra is seen departing the area of the King Road residence at a high rate of speed. The masked man, perhaps pulsing with adrenaline, could not control his heartbeat or his foot, which slammed hard down on the accelerator, leaving telltale tire tracks on the pavement. That's evidence that he had not planned on leaving behind. The white sedan that resembles BK's white Elantra is next observed traveling southbound on Walenta Drive. The police believe the suspect exited the neighborhood at Palouse River Drive and Conestoga Drive. Palouse River Drive is at the southern edge of Moscow and proceeds into Whitman County, Washington. That same road eventually leads to Pullman, Washington. Sometime between roughly 4:25 and 4:48 a.m., Bryan Kohberger's phone pings on the AT&T network once again. It's either been turned back on or airplane mode has been disabled. At that moment, the phone is traveling on Idaho State Highway 95 south of Moscow, Idaho. At 5:25 a.m., a white sedan consistent with Bryan Kohberger's white Elantra is observed on 5 cameras in Pullman, Washington, and on the Washington State University campus cameras. At 5:27 a.m., the white Elantra is observed again, and it's traveling northbound on Stadium Way at Nevada Street. At 5:30 a.m., Bryan Kohberger's phone pings again at 1630 Northeast Valley Road, indicating that he has arrived back at his apartment in Pullman, Washington. Note that it should only take about 15 minutes to drive from Moscow, Idaho to Pullman, Washington. But if you take a less direct route, perhaps with a side trip to some remote area, it could perhaps take an hour. So what was the driver of the white Elantra or white sedan up to during those extra 45 or so minutes between 4:25 a.m. and 5:30 a.m.? If Bryan Kohberger is found guilty of this crime, could he have been changing out of his saturated clothing into clean, dry clothes and ditching the dirty clothes and possibly the sharp-edged object used in the commission of the crime? Maybe. Later, that same Sunday morning at 9 a.m., Bryan Kohberger's phone is on the move again and travels back to the vicinity of 1122 King Road. It's picked up by a nearby cell phone tower between 9:12 a.m. and 9:21 a.m. So that makes it look like the phone's owner sat near the crime scene for about 10 minutes. Was he considering going inside to find the missing leather sheath? Was he curious to see if the police were already at the home? Did he contemplate going inside but then decide not to, knowing how risky it would be to get in and get out sight unseen? At this point, the front door of the crime scene is said to be wide open by a neighbor. Bethany F. appears to have slept through everything and doesn't notice the cold coming in through the open front door. Dylan is presumably still locked inside her bedroom. No one will dial 911 until a few minutes before noon. You have to wonder if the masked man was disappointed by not seeing the cops at the crime scene. By 9:32 a.m., Kohberger's phone indicates that he's back from Moscow to his apartment in Pullman, Washington. By Monday, when he's back in class, Kohberger appears more animated, more willing to engage with his fellow classmates. Why? At the end of this video, wait to hear audio from what may be that security audio from the neighbor's house that picked up sounds from the girl's house on King Road at 4:17 a.m. on November 13th. This appears to be that audio, and it was leaked either on Reddit or YouTube. It's chilling to hear, so this is your trigger warning. Until the next time on Bed Crime.